Inventory 2 Dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 24 years of online coaching. I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Dr. Marv, aka the Educated Meathead. For each show, we posit a thought about a training exercise or training methodology, and then we deep dive into the minutia. We might argue and debate, or we might agree and tell each other how smart we both are. But at the end of the discussion, we both decide if we smash or pass the topic of the day. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use my Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top prep guys have their clients use my protein because it's that good. Today, I'll be doing the second segment of Skip's Cheat Meal Review, where I announce 2 more cookie companies on my top 5 list of the best online cookies. And I smash another shitty one to help you save from eating an overpriced crappy cookie, basically. And no one wants to eat a crappy cookie, right? Nah, especially when you're paying $8 or $9 for that cookie.
I know a thing or two about training, but I built a reputation in the bodybuilding industry for removing skin. If you have too much skin, call me. Remember, skin is overrated.
Yep. We want to hear your feedback and your questions in the comment section about the things that you like about me and all the things you hate about Dr. Marv. I wrote the intro, so he doesn't know that was coming. We'll continue to choose good questions from the comment section and use them for viewer questions, or we might even use a question as a topic on the show. Dr. Marv, today I have the posit.
Yes, sir.
It's a bold one. I was going to say it was a good one, but I used to say that all the time, and then we laugh and go, oh, they're all good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do. You didn't, but that's what I do. Yeah. So it's bold. It's very bold. I posit that every compound movement can be more optimal in a Smith machine than using a free weight barbell. I know. I'm going there. But you know what? I stand on it. But I'm going to ask you, off the top of your head, think of just one compound movement that isn't better in a Smith machine, provided, because there's minutia here.
Yes.
Provided that the positioning is correct, the angle, if there's an angle involved with the Smith machine, that's always I want to say game changer, but it's a pretty important variable. So all things considered, can you think of an exercise that is better outside of the Smith machine?
That is compound is the key word, because you're obviously not going to do curls.
You could, but somebody would shoot me down on that and be like, yeah, that's not. But yeah. Exactly. So I did want to emphasize compound.
That would be a wicked drag curl.
It'd be outside of the box. I'm not going to knock anybody for trying it.
Interesting.
Same with tricep extensions.
Yeah. I might have to try that. Yeah, I think that bold statement's a pretty good one. I almost consider a Smith machine more advanced because positioning is so important. If there's an angle, are you doing the right angle? Does the gym even understand how the Smith machine should be set up so you could use the right angle for different movements?
How many times have you been in a gym and that Smith has been incorrectly positioned, that it's even so close to the mirror that you're like, I can't get a bench in here. I can't do.
Yeah, you're forced to do one angle only. I would say that's more often than it being correct.
Or you're squatting facing everybody else in the gym. Not that it can't be done. I get it.
Yep.
But if you're used to squatting into a mirror, I am. I trained for 41 years. The vast majority of that time, 99% of the time, I'm squatting into a mirror. And then all of a sudden, I get to blow spit and sweat and everything else at anybody who walks by me while they're on their phone. I mean, come on. I think I'm pretty headstrong. I'm pretty focused. But I'm going to pick up on somebody standing in front of me off and talking to somebody else while I'm in the middle of a squat. And it's going to irritate me. I might get another rep or 2 out of it. Maybe it's not a bad thing. Yeah. But the point is there's a lot to unwrap.
Yes. I like it. I like it a lot. In vertical, I prefer a vertical just straight across the board.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way, because that was going to be my next question.
I'm not a fan of it. So according to ChatGPT, it was Jack LaLanne created the first Smith machine in the 50s, refined by Rudy Smith. and they did vertical. ChatGPT does not know who created it. And I think it was just parroting. One company did it, and for some reason everybody else did. I personally can't stand them. And what was interesting is ChatGPT said angled smiths could be anywhere from 7 to 12 degrees. I'm like, 12 degrees is a hell of a lot. I thought it was 6 to 7 off the top of my head. Again, that's ChatGPT, so there's limitations, but like 12 degrees, that's a significant angle.
Yeah.
So interesting. But yeah, so why don't we dive into some research, because we do have comparisons on a squat and bench press on Smith versus free. We kind of talked about Smith and free benching on our last week's episode with triceps, how the sequencing matters. So refer back to that. But yeah, why don't we start with that and know that the head-to-head studies were done on a vertical Smith machine. What's interesting, there's been no that I could find. If somebody could find it, great. I couldn't find any studies that compared vertical to the angled head-to-head, which was interesting. Yep. But there was some studies doing, is it the angle forward or the angles backward that we'll talk about. But I couldn't find anything compared, which if somebody has that, please send it my way. I would love to see that.
Well, off the top of my head, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's any angle at all, for every degree, it's going to be like a hack squat. It's going to be easier, correct?
Yeah, if you do physics, because it's like the cosine of the angle creates the true resistance. So I know off the top of my head, a 45-degree angle on a leg press or a hack is 70% of the actual loading that you have to do, overcome. So a math wizard, it's either the cosine or the sine of the angle gives you the true resistance that you'll have to overcome.
Now, I don't know that really matters at the end of the day, because we're not.
No, I don't.
The numbers
I don't think
it's a plate loading issue more than it is anything else.
Correct. Yeah. But yeah. Man, 12 degrees. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting caught up on the.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I'm thinking to myself, God, have I ever used a 12-degree?
I don't think so.
I think I would know.
Yeah,
I think I would be so like,
too.
Yeah, correct. This is pretty freaking bizarre.
Because that's pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we look at Smith and free weights or bar, so they compared a squat to a free weight squat to a Smith squat 8 rep max, and they did different EMGs. Well, of course, the free weight barbell had significantly higher EMG reading, especially the gastrocnemius, the biceps femoris, aka your outer hamstring, and then the vastus medialis, aka the teardrop. And this generally, no big surprise, right? We know that machine guided movements reduce what's called neural activation. So you don't have to stabilize. So we know that.
Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com. Where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses.
Yep. In the bench press, what was interesting was the free weight had significantly higher middle delt activation than the Smith. And that's because you have to, stabilize the bar path, joint mechanics of that. Also, keep in mind, the people in the studies, had they used a Smith before, there might not be the comfort level. Most people, I think, gravitate towards free barbell benching, even Gen Pop, right? So that could be it. When we looked at 1 rep max and strength, the Smith got higher 1 rep max numbers, more notably in women than men, while the free weight bench press 1 rep max exceeded the Smith 1 rep max bench press, but that was equal for both sexes. So it was just interesting that there was a difference between men and women could squat higher single rep maxes with a Smith.
Okay, but is that surprising when you think about? I'm thinking first thing came to my brain was fear.
Oh yeah,
the fear of getting caught.
Yeah, that's potential.
And even as a male, I look at it now with age. I never used to approach the free weight barbell squat as, oh, this could crush me. I could absolutely destroy my lower back. So maybe there's a fear component, a psychological component in there that is helpful. Because I bet if you went to the male demographic and you were able to separate the meek, the older, meeker skipper guys with the people who are like, yeah, I don't really care.
Yeah.
You know, the more aggressive, you know, I don't want to say alpha male, but, you know, for lack of a better way to describe it, there may not be that disparity with that group that there is with the fearful ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Yeah, and it doesn't. We're not being sexist and saying all women are fearful, but that
I just included myself, so they can't bust me for that.
Just making sure before people. I mean, please comment for the algorithm, but we're not getting canceled yet.
Right.
Power and hypertrophy, very, very similar, right? So really, they're, you know, as you would expect, more activation in a free weight than a Smith. So there's that.
But not necessarily for the target muscle, right?
Yeah. So like other muscles be there. I have a little bit, we're going to have more information because now we're going to go into the angles. Because then target muscle might change a little bit.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself because I do that sometimes and you're like pulling me back in.
Yeah, folks, Skip does not know the notes I have in front of me.
Right, exactly.
I swear, I will swear on my mother's grave.
I think that's pretty obvious by episode 26. Yeah.
So I actually learned some cool stuff with this, which was awesome. It makes a lot of sense when I thought about it. I was like, oh, well, yeah, I've kind of intuitively prescribed it this way, but it was cool when you get to see how smart you are. We're talking about breaking down the squat with an angled Smith machine and how you could, based on your setup, change the amount of stress and loading that is going through two key ligaments in your knee, your ACL and your PCL, right? And tearing those is not ideal. Now, fun fact, if you are not an athlete who does a lot of lateral cutting, you can completely destroy your ACL and you don't necessarily have to get surgery. You just need really strong quads, but an ACL is not necessary. But if you're younger, you're a field athlete cutting, or you plan to be very active, yes. Just a side tangent, patellar ACL grafts are vastly superior to hamstring or cadaver. So hopefully nobody ever has to go down that rabbit hole, but it does seem the patellar tendon is significantly stronger, but it takes 2 full years for the bone on each end to actually fully assimilate. So it's a longer rehab, but significantly stronger. And if you get cadaver ACL grafts, your body could resorb them. So every time patient comes in and they're like, yeah, I had an ACL done, I think it was a cadaver. If it's anywhere near around the 10-year mark, and if there's any laxity in the knee, I'm immediately doing an MRI because I've 4 or 5 times there's no ACL anymore, which is pretty interesting. Yep. Okay. So let me show these ligaments real quick because I think everybody's heard of ACL and PCL thanks to sports. Who was we were watching one of the Hard Knocks and a kid tore his ACL. It was just a bummer. Okay, so here we go. Here is your posterior cruciate ligament. We call it the PCL, right? And its job is to prevent the femur, your thigh bone, from shifting forward in relationship to your shin bone. And then the ACL is the exact opposite. Its job is to prevent this femur bone from shifting backwards in relation to your thigh bone. The injury that sticks out to me is Willis McGahee had this happen to him in the national championship where his leg essentially folded backwards like a giraffe. It was gnarly. So hopefully nobody ever has to worry about which type of graft they're going to get. But if you've had a graft in the past and you're starting to have knee issues and it's feeling unstable, you might want to get it checked and just make sure your quads are super strong. All that was to say these ligaments really matter. Now, the PCL is most loaded as you're getting into flexion, and the ACL is most loaded as you're getting into extension. So the maximum shearing force on a PCL is around 85 to 105 degrees of flexion, while the ACL loads are really low there, but those spike up as you near extension, peaking around 10 to 30 degrees. So it's just interesting that they get loaded in different areas.
Okay, I want to go back because I want to make sure that I understand that. And if I understand it, because I'm not terribly bright, the viewers will understand it. When you're talking about, because you were talking about the ACL and the PCL, not just the PCL, correct? Okay,
correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So let me go back to the PCL with your maximum load at 100 and what was the degree?
So it was PCL's 85 to 105 degrees of knee bend.
Give me the position then that degree, like for a visual, what that degree looks like in a leg curl.
So your legs are getting pretty damn curled. You're almost finishing the range of motion.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's what I thought. But then my brain goes, no, I'm misunderstanding it.
Yep.
Because there would be more, my brain says there's going to be more stress in the stretch position, but there's not.
No, that's how the ACL then takes over for the PCL. So different degrees, different ligaments are most tense and loosened. That's why they're so intricate, right? Because you have those two ligaments that are crossed and they're going front to back like you saw. Then you have ligaments on the side. Like, it's pretty intricate because you've got to stop motion in all 6 planes of motion. So you've got to stop forward to back, side to side, diagonal. So everything is crisscrossed, wrapping it up pretty well. Like everybody could do a quick, just cursory Google search, just knee ligaments, go to images. It's mind-blowing how much stuff is there. Yeah. Now, what's interesting is different studies would do the different degrees, right? So one study would call, 10 degrees of knee bend extension, while the other one would call that 170. Like, it just got really convoluted. So there was a lot of trying to keep track of how each researcher talked about the degrees, but just know, as we bend the knee, PCL, as you straighten the leg, ACL.
As an educated meathead, I want to be doing everything I can to recover from each training session. Rapid reboot compression therapy is one of the tools in my tool belt that I not only use in just my office, but myself after every single leg session, and it really makes a difference. Use my promo code Dr. Marvin Says to save money on any of the compression systems. That is definitely Dr. Marv approved.
Okay, so one more question then to piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
Is it then possible that the reason that most people, or the position, let's just, someone's doing a leg curl and they're going to tear a hamstring, okay? Is it then more likely that tear is going to happen in that degree or close to that degree of flexion versus the extended position?
Usually,
or am I conflating two things that don't even?
That's hamstring versus PCL, which is different.
Okay.
Yeah, different. Yep. Okay. Now, but the hamstring is a stabilizer of the knee too, right? That's why it crosses the knee joint and attaches to the shin bone, right? So everything's working together. So it's just a work of art when you really. I mean, at least to me, we know I'm a nerd of this stuff. Most people don't give a damn, but it's wild. So I do encourage everybody, just quickly look. It's pretty crazy.
Well, it's odd because it's a single. It's not a
hinge
multi-joint angle. Exactly.
Correct. However, we've talked about your knee has to rotate. So your shin bone has to rotate in relationship to your thigh bone when you bend your knee, and it has to rotate when you extend the knee. Now, it's not a lot, but having that knee rotation is really important. Right? Because people just go, it's a hinge. You go straight up and down. There's rotation. If you're not rotating, biomechanics are going to be off. You're going to have vague knee pain. You're not going to be able to squat as deep. Life's going to not be great.
Well, maybe we're doing ourselves a disservice by labeling it and programming it in the brain of everybody who's training and rehabbing that it's just not a multi-joint. I mean, clearly it's not a multi-joint like a shoulder or a hip. There's not that much. But to say that that it's just a straight up and down movement, I mean, in my brain, that's the way that it has always been been thought of until about 2 minutes ago.
Yep. Yeah. So when I teach people that, and we'll have Chris put in my favorite, quickest and easiest way to restore rotation on screen is a really very high level, like CrossFit finals games competitor doing it. And it really, really helped him. So I just
had me do it, and it did help.
Yeah. Oh,
and
I
remember doing it, going, what the hell? Now it's all coming together.
There is a method of the madness. I promise I'm not making you do random stuff.
Slower than the average bear. Yeah. There's a dated reference. If anybody gets that reference, go ahead. Yeah. You got to I'll give it away. That's a Yogi Bear one. That one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, nice. I was young, but I was real young for Yogi Bear.
So how do you reduce stress on those ligaments if you're having issues with it? It would be it would be angled backwards. Your foot would be forward, right? So you're making it more hip dominant, right? So if you're the angle, we're not doing vertical now, we're doing angled. So if it's backwards, pushing your hips back with your feet a little bit farther forward, and you actually put a lot more forefoot pressure, so pressure on the front of the foot, it'll dramatically reduce the shearing force that the ACL and PCL have to counteract. So if you're coming back from an injury, you've had a history of that, the knee's pissed off, yes, it's more hip dominant, so you'll get a little bit more glute and adductor, but that's a way to continue to squat to reduce pressure, but make sure you're not driving through the heel. Yes, you want pressure on your heel, because if we lose pressure on the heel, you lose the knee's ability to rotate, but put pressure on the forefoot. And that's a way to keep squatting, so long as it's not like an acute tear, but that's a way to work around it.
Okay, let's be clear on this so that I understand, because if I understand, the viewers understand.
Yep.
The weight is going to, because of the angle, the weight is going to end up further back than where it starts. This is the movement, correct? Or the path of the Smith bar. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So as you're squatting, it is pushing your hips down. So we might as well do that. Yeah. So if you're doing that, it'll increase, obviously, the moment arm and torque on the hip. So more glute adductor. If it is pushing you forward, it will be more knee dominant, right? So more quad dominant. Now, as it pushes you back further, that's more of a low bar. So that'll create more shearing force on the low back. So that's something to keep in mind as well, right? But typically, if I'm going to do squats on a Smith, I'm always having it drive me forward because I want more quad dominant squatting. Yeah. Just from an aesthetic standpoint.
The bodybuilding version of a Smith squat that is angled, the vast majority of the time is going to that bar path is going to be doing
pushing
this where
forward.
And let's even be more clear, because the angle is going to do this no matter which way you're facing. So this visual isn't very helpful until you say, which way are you facing? You're facing this way.
So whenever I say backward inclination moving forward, it means the angle's going behind you. If we say forward, it's going away from you.
Gotcha.
Everybody on board? Yep. So there's that. So obviously, if you understand that concept, we understand everything. So that was pretty interesting about the forefoot pressure and making it more low bar, taking torque off the knee. So that was pretty cool. Now with bench press, right? The inclination is going to change a lot of stuff, right? The range of motion, the movement at the shoulder, all of that. So a backward inclination will decrease how much the shoulder has to flex, and it increases how much the elbow has to extend. So that means it's going to, increase triceps especially, and then anterior delt with less pec major, right? So you could think of if it's a backward inclination pushing, up over your head, that's like for powerlifting, like lockout tricep strength. So that'll get a little bit more tricep, right? And then there is less shearing force on the front of the shoulder. So if you're like me, and you've got 2 torn shoulder labrums, which is super fun, makes training really fun, I will be doing a backward inclination because it takes some of the shearing force off the front of my shoulder, which is where my tear is. So if you do forward, then reverse it. That's going to increase the amount of shoulder flexion you have, but reduce the amount of elbow extension you require. Hence, it's going to be more pec and anterior delt still, right? Now, if it's forward inclination pushing away from you, it's going to be a lot harder off the chest, right? And it's going to require a lot more shoulder stabilization. If you're pushing up, it's a lot easier off the chest. So a lot of times people will be significantly stronger if they're angled backwards on a bench press and they don't know why. So play around with that next time. Do 1 set with it forward if your gym's smart enough to give you space, 1 set with it backwards, and people will be surprised. When I was a trainer, I would show them the difference. They'd be like, does it matter? I'm like, you tell me.
Yeah.
And there is a pretty significant difference of that sticking point of getting it off your chest. So that will, though, even though it's better for your pecs for bodybuilders, which we typically want, that does increase stress on the front of the shoulder. So just keep that in mind. If you're having a bunch of anterior or front of the shoulder pain and you're benching at that angle, you might need to change it up. You just might.
Okay, but isn't that also related to other variables like Are your shoulders dominant? Are your front delts dominant? Are your elbows tucked? In more of a powerlifting?
I am giving general guidelines just to give people, like, if you're having this issue, you know, if you have an issue with the knee, mimic a low bar. If you're having an issue with a shoulder, push back overhead with you. And then, there's a lot, like shoulder blade control is massive. How much space you have, we've talked about multiple times. You know, are you exceeding your shoulder's ability for pure internal rotation? So the bottom of a press is internal rotation. Black is the worst possible color. So as I go, if I keep going, if I go further, my front of my shoulder will dip forward. I've exceeded the active range of my pec. Now the tension's on my bicep tendon, increasing strain on my rotator cuff, like we've talked about a ton. So like that'll come into play too, right? So how much internal rotation do you have? Just a reminder, because I don't know how much bodybuilders or fitness enthusiasts really talk to powerlifters. You know, they don't touch the bar all the way to their chest year round. They just do not. A lot of times the bench specialists, they're only doing that for a couple weeks right before a meet. The rest of the time they're doing board presses or they're stopping short because this is such a hard position. So I don't think people realize that.
Yeah. And I think that comes back to my argument that I have brought up on prior shows when we talk about dumbbell press, barbell press, in this case, Smith press. Don't force the range of motion if it's not there. And I would argue, because if people see me doing dumbbell presses now versus even 15 years ago, they're not going to look the same. I've probably lost 10% of my range of motion. That's a number off the top of my head to make my point. Totally arbitrary. But the point is someone could look and go, yeah, they should be deeper. Or, you know, that very typical argument, oh, you're not touching the bar to your chest, it doesn't count. You know, you can go on any viral layman bench press video and you've got people who look like they don't work out arguing about whether, you know, the 600-pound bench that some kid just did who weighs, you know, 210 pounds, again, arbitrary numbers, but you know, arguing about it when they couldn't pick up half of that off of the floor. So
okay, so with that said, and I don't think people realize, because we're so skewed with what we do and what we see on social media, of like benching 225 pounds is incredibly rare, but to us, we're like, that's the warm up, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like according to powerliftingtechnique.com, a fitness analysis estimated that only 1.3 million Americans, roughly 0.4%, and I think that's high, of the US population can bench press 225. On a global scale, one forum user points out that 0.075% of the world's population might be able to hit that mark, about 3% of gym goers. That makes a lot more sense to me than the first. Folks, I am asking ChatGPT, so let's keep that in mind. I just did it really quickly. But like, the 600-pound bench that Skip just mentioned is absolutely incredible. So quit hating and sipping on Haterade and sucking on jelly-sickles. Like, that sucks. Your life sucks. But we are
jelly-sickles? I've not heard that.
Wow.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to have two. Maybe I'll do it. You know, two vanity plates. One says Haterade. One says jelly-sickle. But then am I asking to get my car keyed or anything? But anyways,
probably.
Yeah. So I haven't done it. But like, like, again, we are so jaded, right? Where just know that it's pretty significant. And then I will only do a guillotine press, which I've talked about. I used to do free barbell, which is just mind blowing to me. And I would do it in part of like a weighted cardio circuit. It was dumb, just terrible early trainer days. I love the guillotine from Vince Garanda, but again, you're being very careful, but I will not let any clients or any of the workouts I have them in, it has to be a Smith. If you don't have a Smith, you are not doing it. But that is my all-time favorite upper chest movement, but you have to respect it, and you are not forcing range of motion. Like Skip was talking about, I used to have the bar come all the way down and just barely rest on my Adam's apple for a count of 2 and press it up. Now I've got probably 5 or 6 inches, but I'm still getting the stretch my shoulder could tolerate. So like Skip said, you might lose range of motion over time. As we get bigger and stronger, things compress, especially the pelvis, especially the rib cage, which is why all those breathing drills we've shown before can make a world of difference. You want to fight to limit how much mobility loss you have, because that's going to potentially increase injury risk and reduce performance in the gym, but do not force it if it's not there. And if you work out in the morning randomly, but you're used to working out at 3 or 4 p.m., guess what? We know that you're not as mobile. You are more mobile around 3 or 4 p.m. on the standard wake up at 7 o'clock than 8 o'clock. So your range of motion could vary throughout the day. So do not force anything. I mean, it is job security for me if you do that, but I don't want that to happen.
That's part of the reason that I don't train early in the day anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm typically a 3, sometimes 4 meal guy before I get to the gym. Now, I'm quite sedentary, but at the same time, even just moving around, my apartment prior to either doing the podcast or doing client work and things like that, day and night difference. And I think anybody listening will know this too and can relate to this. If you've ever had any type of lower back stiffness or injury, getting out of bed after you have not been moving all night is the time where it hurts the most, or you're going to have the most stiffness. As you get up, the body warms up, temperature comes up, you're going to feel a little bit better with that movement and, blood moving and things like that. I want to talk about, though, a couple, because we talked about the squat and the bench press, which are pretty obvious when it comes to Smith machine. I mean, those exercises are probably the majority of the work that's being done. But I'm a big fan of the Smith machine, not only for an overhead press, even and more specifically, 2 in particular. One, the standing push press, because it takes a lot of balance out. You can still use the momentum for a little bit of leg and hip drive to push the shoulders further than you otherwise would be able to. But then there is also the behind the neck press. And people who know anything about me or have watched the show, especially from the start, because we started with a press behind neck, I think for the first episode.
That was our first one.
Fired up. That angle, if I am going, and I prefer the vertical Smith machine as well over any type of angle. But if you are going to overhead press with the behind the neck press, you want that bar to end up. You want to be facing this way, but you want that bar to end up at lockout behind you, because I argue that there's more medial delt activation there than there is if you were to turn around and press the other way. That, I think, pushes more of that stress to the front delt. Now, if I'm going to do a front military press, even a push press, I'm going to turn around and face that way so that the bar ends up slightly ahead of me at lockout versus behind me. Another good exercise is a row, a barbell row. I will take and will not argue with an angled Smith machine or a barbell bent row, because again, if you get any type of backward pull, whether it's 6 degrees or 12 degrees, matter of fact, that might be the only benefit I can see to a 12-degree angle leg press. So if anyone is out there listening to the podcast who makes Smith machines, make your 12-degree Smith machine specific to barbell rowing, and I won't have any problem with that. It's literally the only exercise I can see where there would be a benefit to that big of an angle. But again, that's off the top of my head. But
okay, so let's talk about all those, because I had those written down, because I knew you were going to go behind the neck. Yes, so the more vertical we're pressing up, the more medial activation we get. So the backward inclination that Skip was talking about for behind the neck, I never would have thought to do a push press on a Smith machine, by the way. I wish my shoulders could do those still. I really like that idea. And then tangent, I freaking hate the free motion Smiths. They just take up so much damn space in the gym. They're a waste of time. But anyways, the only benefit to that is you could do like forward and backward lunges. Other than that, like, there's more
stabilization. I can certainly see
correct.
that.
Yes.
But you're almost taking away the very reason that you're doing it.
Correct.
So, the only thing you're not allowed in that position is to twist.
Yep. So
you can go forward and backwards.
Correct.
But it's just
So if we're doing a backward inclination, it's going to allow you to be more stretched, right? So it's going to allow for greater elbow extension demands, right? So pressing backwards, kind of like what we talked about, will reduce stress, shearing stress on the front of the shoulder. So that's really important. Pressing backwards will be more tricep lockout, just like the bench press. So I like that. You're also, doing the naturally clearing your head thing, which is nice. And with biomechanical modeling, we could say that I didn't say it earlier, a backward tilt. I got to use a technical term, then I'll explain it. A backward tilt or a backward angled Smith will shift moment. So the amount of torque on a joint from distal to proximal joints, meaning from farther away to closer. So what I mean by that is we talked about the bench. If it's angled backwards, it's shifting the force to my hip, which proximal means closer to center, distal means further away. So whenever, if you remember this, the one thing, if it's angled backwards behind me, it's going to be the closer joint. If it's angled away from me, it's going to be the farther joint. You remember that, you know how to do the angle for everything.
Yep.
So we will have, with an incline, the angled forward overhead press, you'll get a lot more deltoid upper pec contribution, like you just said, but it does increase the forced stress on the front of the shoulder. So just keep that in mind. If you're like me, well, I'm not overhead pressing at all, but hopefully you're better than me. Forward will be more delt, like Skip said, but it's also going to add more force to the front. Is everybody with me? You with me?
With you.
Good. And then, for bent over rows, a backward inclination will absolutely increase spinal loading. So if you're coming back from a back injury, you might want to switch it the other way. But otherwise, I totally agree. Pulling back into you is way better. It allows you to stay more on your feet, keep more of the posterior chain. I could see somebody make an argument of it being angled forward would actually, yes, it'll unload the lumbar spine. It might help shift a little bit more of the initial load to the upper back slightly, but I think that's just such a weird movement. And then people are going to start shrugging and then using trap a ton or levator a ton. So
I see really a lot of brachialis there too.
Yep. So, but if you have a low back injury, do that. But I'm like, if you have a low back injury, don't bend over rope.
Right.
Period.
Do hammer. Yeah. Do supported T-bars. Yeah.
Or you use a Smith machine, but get an incline bench and do like a chest supported row. That's a pain in the butt to set up, but I agree with you. And then RDLs is the last. I was trying to think of like, what would people talk about? Yes. Like the angled backwards for RDL is going to push you more into your glutes. It's still always going to be hip dominant, but a forward inclination would just be weird. It would just, I don't know. It would do more knee torque. So you might be tempted to use your quads more, but that's not the point of an RDL. So for the most part, backwards is better for most movements except for a bodybuilding quad dominant squat.
What about rack deads?
If you're pulling for more than 6 inches, because everybody loads it up and they want to put 6 plates. I did this. I could put 4 plates aside and do a 6-inch range of motion rack.
Well, sometimes Smith machines will go to the floor.
Yeah, not all. Yeah,
correct. But and that's the other part about Smith machines that is irritating is there are a lot of limitations. Like there are very few. You got to have a pretty tall Smith machine to be able to stand in it to do an overhead push press. Because a lot of them you're gonna hit the top of the Smith machine.
Yeah.
The other thing is going to the floor. Even if you're doing barbell bent overs, a lot of times you have to have a platform or something to stand on because you'll bottom out the machine and then you don't have a full range of motion there. Correct. And it's an arguably an effective exercise if you're not going to have
and you would definitely want it angled backwards because that way you could get full retraction for a rack dead. But most Smiths, because I remember Dante posted like some brutal challenge on a Smith rack dead, and like none of the Smith machines I had would go low enough, and I was really bummed out. I was like, son of a bitch, because it looked really fun. Lunges are going to be the same
for them.
Correct.
And I will tell you, anybody listening, please don't use the aerobic step up plastic.
Yes.
I mean, there's just a lot of ways to really F yourself up.
Or an exercise ball. Honestly, that's one of the times where I will go up to anybody and be like, don't do that. Because if that ball pops, you're in this position, you're going to spiral fracture most likely both arms on as like the least injury possible. Like that could be beyond catastrophic. So if you ever tell them I said this, say there's this guy named Dr. Marv said don't do that. If you ever see anybody doing free weight presses on an exercise ball, man, those things are not weighted for that. I mean, there was a guy who would put like 275 and then do an exercise ball benching, and I'm like, how do you think this is safe? So anyways, get off my soapbox. But.
Let me interject here just for a second, just to make my point of how time in the gym and being a veteran in the gym and the familiarity of doing this, a million times over can sometimes get you. It wasn't a Smith machine, but I was on a belt squat last Thursday for legs. It's a hammer strength. And I was using a Harbinger. I always mess this up.
I thought it was Carabiner, but
is it Carabiner? I don't know. I'm thinking probably because it's I'm going to the trade name of one of anyway. Yep, Carabiner. Using a Carabiner clip. I'm about 7 reps in, starting to get rough, that sort of thing. Luckily, at the top, because had it happened in any other position, I think I'd have been screwed. At the top, what I had not realized when I got in and picked up the weight was the loops on the belt. And you know where I'm going. The loops on the belt itself and the connecting clip had both gotten right there they were positioned perfectly to not have that carabiner stretch to where it was supposed to. So, if you have an oval, you have one, you want them hooked here. Well, they were hooked. It was like almost kind of double hook at the top. For whatever reason, it jerked. And those plates and I just thought immediately, of course, I kept going because I was like, well, you got lucky there, and just kept going. I'm in the middle of the set. But had that happened in the bottom position or coming up at the sticking position 2 or 3 or 4 reps later, I can't imagine what that would have done to someone's lower back like mine who had a history of L4, L5 herniations. I've been injury-free for almost 10 years now, but it's still there. And I can't imagine what that stress would have been in a more vulnerable position at any other point in that rep. I dodged a bullet and I realized it, but I didn't realize it as much until I was able to process it once I put the weight down and got out of the set. So I bring this up not because it has anything to do with Smith machine, but because what we were talking about reminded me that as many times as we do what we do, something simple can be overlooked and you can end up effing yourself up. So now you can bet your ass when I go to do belt squats every time now, I'm going to make sure that my shirt, my sweatshirt, whatever is not in the way and that it's clipped and held. And it's 1,000,000 to 1 that would ever happen, but it happened and it could have been
to me
catastrophic.
Once. Luckily I had just unracked it and then it did it. And same thing. I was like, oh shit. So I feel bad we didn't bring that up in our Smith episode that comes out tomorrow. But it's coming out now.
The belt squat.
Yeah. I mean the belt. Yeah. But
which is funny because we had just recorded.
Yeah.
What, 3 days earlier?
Yeah.
Just a very bizarre
Yeah.
coincidence. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. So again, I think Smith could be argued to be more advanced. I think it's significantly better from a safety profile. You got to know how to set yourself up, like we talked about. We'll see if my wrist will allow me to do a drag curl on the straight up and down Smith at the gym tomorrow, just to see. Because I'm just curious.
Every now and then I try it and I go, oh, that's why I don't do it.
Yeah.
It just does not feel right.
Yeah.
And before we finish this too, I want to say, before we go to Smash or Pass, the elephant in the room. I want to ask the viewers, and I'm going to ask you, what is your method? How OCD are you, or are you not OCD about this? How do you set up the bench in the Smith? There are basically 3 different types. One just throws it in there. The bench is underneath. They jump on. They go, oh, yeah, okay, I'll move it over a little bit. Oh, good to go. That's not Skip. That is a total and utter lack of OCD-ness right there that I can't relate to. Then you have the extreme other side, which is me, who puts it underneath there, stands back, looks to visually make sure that at least it's not crooked. And then I start spacing from the knurls to the side of the bench. And then my eyes will go like this, like this, like this, so that the space between my hand and the bench is equal. I am not going to get underneath a bar or a dumbbell that is crooked. It's not going to happen. The number 2 option is somewhere in the middle and you're good and it feels good and you're okay with it. So I'm going to ask the viewers to respond in the comments. Which one are you? Number 1, 2, 3. I'm number 3. Number 1, no level of OCD at all. You just don't even think about it. And then number 2 is just kind of a happy medium. Okay, I think about it. I don't want it to be crooked, but I'm not going to spend all day trying to figure this out. There are times where I'll look at it and go, especially if I'm in a gym that I normally wouldn't be at. Oh, the bench is actually, looks like it's off on the one side, like it's twisted a little bit. Hell no. We're trading that bench out and going for one that looks like it's visually even from left to right. I don't deal with things like that, which is another reason I don't deal with cheap equipment. And that goes for the cheaper versions of hammer strength that try to mimic and copy hammer strength. And then you get pads that are twisted, or you pull that. We have one at our gym and I refuse to use it. A hammer strength vertical row, or vertical because you're seated vertically, but you row in. It's got the different handles on it. But once you pull it in, one handle is 1 inch from the pad. The other one is almost 2 inches from the pad. Oh, no, that's not straight. Nope, not using that. So I just write that machine off and don't use it. So what level of OCD-ness you are, I wanted to touch on that.
I'm like
that elephant in the room.
I'm like a 2.357.
Okay, I was going to say, because I find it odd that you're not like a 3.9.
So here's what I do. So I have pictures saved as favorite. So I get a ballpark for like the squat wedge. Okay. Right. So I do that.
Wait. You save pictures.
Yes. So I do that. So I look at that.
This is good.
Yep. Then I'll put it in. I eyeball it. Then I always do a couple reps with an empty bar. Once I know it's perfect, then I'll start my warm-up sets. Okay. But I'll put it in, I eyeball it. Yeah, for my squat wedge, once I find the perfect placement, I look at my picture, I go, okay, boom. And then I'll always do an empty bar. So maybe I'm more like 2.785 with an asterisk with the picture.
I feel better that there is something there, because I might one-up you on this one.
I don't get a tape measure out, and I don't get a laser measurement right angle, so I don't do that.
Okay. How about this one though? You'll appreciate this one. Even at gyms who don't, like some gyms, they're pretty good. Armbrust Pro Gym, like they mop that place twice a day, the entire place, right?
Yeah.
Dylan is on that. Other gyms, sometimes I don't even want to lie down on the floor, but check this out. I will take chalk. Yeah, I'll use the hack squat as an example, or the pendulum, and I will mark with chalk where my toes will be, and it will stay there for months. It may fade a little bit, but no one is cleaning the gritty. You know what I'm saying? The gritty grip that is on a calf machine, a leg press machine, a hack squat machine, a pendulum. They're not going anywhere near that. And if you don't believe me, mark something with chalk and tell me if it's, and I have liquid chalk, so it's even thicker. It stays there forever. I mean, it'll fade a little bit, but it's there. And it just gives me, it doesn't have to be, perfectly marked. As long as I see the marks, then I know where I'm going to be. So instead of taking a picture, I like the picture idea, don't get me wrong, but without my glasses, when I don't train, I'm not very good, which is part of the reason I don't keep a logbook anymore. That and I sweat profusely, so I will end up with a notebook that is in really bad shape after 3 months. Anyway, let's smash or pass.
Yep.
And this is going to irritate. I get this, and I'm waiting for this. I anticipate this in the comment section. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to say, well, Skip, in all his years, I know I have seen videos of him free bar squatting, and then he's gonna talk shit about. That's not what I'm doing at all. I am not by saying that the Smith machine, that I feel that it is superior for pretty much every compound exercise. The other free weight barbell exercises are worthless. That's not at all what I'm saying. And if for those who want to argue, say, well, this has worked really well for me, I'm not trying to take anything from you. If it's working for you, you continue to do it, you ride it till the wheels fall off. But I will say this, don't tell me that it's this, and this happens a lot, it's like the pussy way out. Like, oh, you're doing it on a Smith machine, doesn't count. Because until you go after Dorian or guys who have physiques who have specifically done these movements, or just like last week when I brought up Austin Stout, stand next to him, and if you have better legs than he does, then I guess call out the belt squat. And it's not about, well, Austin has them, but you don't. It's not about that. Okay, that is more of a genetic predisposition versus someone who has sit there and pounded on this exercise and can literally see and say, this is what they looked like before, this is what they look like now. There is no imbalance. These legs are damn good. And Austin is only one example. He's the guy that I thought of when I thought of the belt squat, because I see him doing that same or versions of that same movement. Same with the Smith machine. So there you go. I will stand on my opinion, and I will say that there is not one. If there was an exercise that was superior free bar, you'd have been the first one that would have come up with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to smash Smith all day long. Hopefully you have a vertical one, but if you have an angled, you've got options. So
I posited it, so you know I'm smashing it.
Yep.
And
Awesome.
I'm also going to smash the angle for the angled Smith for specific exercises, like the bent over row or the behind the neck press. But I'm not going to complain if I have a vertical, completely up, straight up and down Smith, which is difficult to find these days. I mean, you got to kind of be in a garage style type of gym, older equipment, trying to think Cybex. If you're going to find an old school Smith machine that is straight up and down, it's probably going to be a Cybex. Bodymaster makes them, but most Bodymasters are angled these days. 9 out of 10 are going to be angled. So if you can find it, use it. Straight up and down. You'll never go wrong with straight up and down. But at least if you're going to use the angle, use it correctly.
And then ask your gym owner to flip the machine around if they have it set up wrong.
It's not
because I swear it's more than 50% of gyms have it unusable how you're supposed to use it.
And I think there are some people listening who will agree with this. A lot of people just use it based on the way the hooks roll. And that doesn't, they had to put that thing together at some point. Who put it together? Someone who knew? Might be the same guy who positioned it too close to the mirror. I don't want to just assume that this is the way it's supposed to be. Pay attention to the angle, forget the hook. Sometimes it can be an irritation that the hooks are not going to rotate the way you want them to, but it is what it is. It's more important that you get the angle right than the way those hooks rotate.
Completely agree.
Skip's cheat meal review. We're down to, I covered number 3 and number 4 on my top 5 list of cookie companies. So today I have the 2nd and 3rd place spots. And I know people are going, oh man, why is he not doing number 1? Because I'm going to drag it out one more show. But I will tell you this. No, I will. I will say that there is at least one person who does not know me that at some point in the comment sections of the show, since I did the first top, that has figured out or guessed, oh, it could be this one. Number 3 is the Moonshine Cookie Company. They are in Tennessee. They're great. Here's the one catch. And I'm good with spending money. I have no problem blowing money if it's something that I want. And again, I want to remind people, I have ordered from a lot of cookie companies, upwards of 30 online cookie companies in the last year. Moonshine is great. They have slightly different flavor combinations, kind of like one is a lemon combined with blueberry, things like that. One is even apple. It has apple pieces in it. Happy Pappy, they call it. But here's the one catch. They are small. They're not the big 4-pounders or 3-pounders, where you break them open. And, I said, I'm not a big fan of that anyway, but they still make bigger cookies that they're bigger, but they don't have 4 gallons of caramel coming out of them. So they're still good cookies. These are small. So when you look at them, you go, man, I paid a lot of money for these cookies. They aren't taking up a whole lot of space, but they're very, very good. And again, any of these companies that I mentioned, they do national shipping. So I'm not mentioning any or critiquing any cookie companies that you can't actually get from anywhere in the United States.
Okay.
You can get all these, you can order them. And for those who don't know, Gold Belly, even if they don't ship nationally, sometimes Gold Belly, if you don't know about it, you can get anything from a pecan pie that'll be delivered on dry ice to meats to, like, let's say you're from New York City and you like Cat's Deli because it's got the best pastrami sandwich. They will ship pastrami to you on dry ice. You can literally almost order anything from Gold Belly.
Okay.
But you don't have to get moonshine cookie companies from Gold Belly. I'm just making that point. Number 2, Cookie PGH. Cookie is spelled Cookey. Nick helped me with this one, Nick Walker, because he said when you go to Pittsburgh,
it's Cookie what?
Cookie PGH. PGH is basically Pittsburgh. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I didn't know that until I was there. Everything is PGH there. And when you go and you look up any type of restaurant or cookie place or anything on Instagram, you'll almost always see PGH at some point in the name. So Cookie PGH. It's not a storefront. It's just a trailer. They do sell online, but a lot of times they're out. They're out of stock. It's a startup that is a husband and wife, but they don't have, not only do they not have the financial backing and reputation yet to be able to have a storefront, but they just don't have the time to have this vast like supply and all this time to have these cookies available every day. So you do have to watch their website or their Instagram, and they will say whether they're in stock or they're not in stock. They're only out of stock 2, maybe 3 days out of the week. Okay. But Nick Walker told me about this place, told me to check it out. I took an Uber 30 minutes to a flea market outside of Pittsburgh, and I had to pay the Uber driver to stay there. So that, and I even got him some cookies. He was super, super freaking cool. And if I'm being completely honest, I paid him off the clock, off of the Uber app, cash, so that he would stay, because I knew I was arguably not going to get another Uber ride back. Like, who would the hell would come out of Pittsburgh 30 minutes to come pick up somebody? They're not going to do that, especially in those, I say, smaller towns, but Pittsburgh is arguably not a huge metropolitan area. Anyway, great. They're a little bit bigger, but they don't have all that stuff oozing out. Excellent cookies, worth every penny. Number 1, I'm not going to say today. That's for the next show.
All right.
And I won't even say what it starts with, but it's an institution. Their cookies are iconic. And in the last 15 years, it has yet to be beaten. That's the Skip's Cheat Meal Review.
Nice.
Number 2, 3, 4, 5 of my top 5 cookies.
So 2 is Cookie PGH, 3 is Moonshine, 4 is Ray's, 5 is the Detroit Cookie Company.
Yep.
That sounds about right. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to be
Oh, you know what? I got to do my
some
smash
for
though
my
real
wife.
quick, or my pass real quick. Almost screwed it up real quick. And this is, it's hard sometimes to do these passes.
Yeah.
Because I see that they're invested in their business. The customer service is great. I'm sorry, the cookies just weren't that great. Cronky Cookies out of Miami. If you're going to be in a large metropolitan area like Miami, you're not going to last without good cookies. They're big. There's too much going on. There's too many flavors in one. It's a mess. They don't label the flavor on every cookie when they package them, because when you order nationally, they will like wrap them as single cookies, and they will have the name of the flavor on it and everything else. Only half of them did. So I'm guessing at what they are. But there were several of these cookies that I took 1 or 2 bites and they went straight into the trash. It's not that they were bad. Like, they weren't horrible. It's that I've had too many cookies and it's like, this isn't even worth eating. It's so mediocre that I don't know how you're getting this money. And I feel bad saying that, but it's just full transparency. Save your money. There are far, not even just because we're talking nationally here, but not just nationally, but even in Miami, there are at least 10 better places to get cookies. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry to the owner of Cronky.
Hey, but you're being honest, and that's
I'm being
what-
honest. I'm saving people time. I'm saving people money, because there's nothing worse than you see something and you almost feel like it's misrepresented, and you spend good money on it.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
$8 or $9 a cookie is it better be a good cookie. And then you wait on it, sometimes up to a week, because they have to bake. Then they have their days that they ship. It takes a while, a couple days to get them shipped to you. It's a letdown, and especially for a bodybuilder who we don't cheat every day.
Yeah.
We have limited cheat meals, and especially when it comes to things like cookies or donuts or whatever, that's still sometimes not even a part of a cheat meal. And then you're like, "Aw, like I wasted it."
Yeah.
You know, so I'm trying to be helpful.
I dig it. Okay.
Questions?
Questions.
Your questions? Sounds good.
All right. This is from @JosephRusk BN7VT. What are both of your opinions on using gymnastic hollow holds in addition to vacuums to help tighten and strengthen the core? I personally prefer it over planks.
I can see the benefit once I Googled them.
Yeah.
I was not familiar. I'm like, what is that?
Mhm.
But I can certainly see the benefit. It's just not something. I was actually surprised that you knew what they were, which it shouldn't be surprising, because you have a lot more of these out of the box movements in your toolbox, especially with rehab and prehab, than I do. Yeah, I come from a bodybuilder. That's why sometimes even like the B stance, I'm like, B stance squats. Why don't we just go with regular squats? And yet that hit the viewers with, damn, I tried that movement. I like that movement. I'm sitting over here going, dang, I would not have given that much thought. I would have thought that the viewers would be like, much like I was. And that was not the case. So these movements outside of the box, I think they're great. In fact, when I saw it, I Googled what it was. I'm like, I'm going to give that a shot. And then I totally forgot about it. So I train abs tomorrow. I'm going to give them a shot, and I'm going to see. I can tell without having done them yet, they're not going to be easy to do. These are going to be like, they're going to probably rank up there with the sit-up thing that Rocky was doing, or the leg lift thing that Rocky was doing. Maybe not that hard, but they're going to be pretty difficult. This is not going to be a high rep endeavor out of the box. And arguably, the plank crunch is not a high rep endeavor the first 5, 6, 8 times you do it either. It's like these are hard, and you have to build into those higher reps and condition that midsection to be stronger. So I'm all for them. I think it's a great idea. I would not have known what they were unless that question was asked.
Yeah. So I have them in at least 2 of my programs on the Educated Meathead, because I'll do non-traditional core day that we know I'm big on, Skip's talking about. And I always start with like a core activation, and it'll be like a plank or a hollow body hold or a Zercher hold, blah, blah, blah. Very challenging. So they're really good it's just another way to get TVA, right? To help with your midsection control on stage day to day. Overall, though, what's interesting, so they will create less intra-abdominal pressure, i.e. bracing than traditional bracing. So they're not best for lifting stability. So I like the DNS, pushing everything out, doing that while you're lifting, but then doing a hollow body hold for core work, and adding that hollowing to a prone plank will actually create more activation of the obliques, the lumbar erectors, and people report higher perceived effort. So you want to make that front plank minute last even longer, hollow out while doing it. So that could be a progression to make it even harder. I think it was Dante would do vacuums, but then he would also do vacuums like leaning up against the wall, almost mimicking like a stretched plank position. So that's another way. So yeah, I like what he was saying, he prefers them over planks. There are 2 different ways to go about it, and then you can combine them. And you'll shake like a leaf the first few times you do it, and you're going to be sore. So I wouldn't do 10 sets of 30 seconds your first time. It's really challenging, but man, it's awesome for on-stage presentation. We just, people typically go vacuum, 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 vacuum. I'm like, there's different movements you could add to this. So like adding hollowing to other core movements is a unique challenge. And that'll really help you with your core control. If you are a on-stage competitive bodybuilder, remember, you don't need to step on stage to be a bodybuilder. But yeah, I would recommend add it, and you will be shocked, and you're going to be sore. It's not as much soreness as like if you've ever done, the the ab rollouts. Like if you haven't done that
Right.
in a while, you're going to maybe do 5 reps total. Otherwise, you're going to hate life for the next 2 weeks.
Mhm.
But you're in for a challenge if you've never done one before.
You won't be able to stand up straight.
Correct.
You walk
Yep.
kind of hunched over. Which is funny too,
Mhm.
because when I do leg lifts off of a bench,
Mhm.
without knowing what that movement was, in the stretch position for my last couple sets, I do my own version. I do
Hmm.
my own version of I catch myself when I say
So
things
mature,
grammatically.
just so mature, Skip.
Well, it's just so grammatically messed up
mind-blowing.
too. So
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
have to make a joke about it to try to look self-deprecating. But anyway, in that stretch position, I will do my own version of
Okay.
that hollowing out
Mhm.
without even knowing what I was doing. Because I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of vacuum. But I
Mhm.
will admit that there comes a time, and it was the last couple weeks before prep, I thought, are these really helping anymore? Like, I don't even, I'll tell you what they did do, because I did build into, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole of vacuums right now, but I want to make the point that what it did help me do was I transitioned into not breathing and arguably holding my breath, and was able to then build up to a higher amount of time that I could hold my breath by
Mm.
pulling a vacuum in a front double bicep, or in a position, in a pose where I needed to hold, that it was beneficial to my look to be able to pull my stomach. And then I get to the stage for this last show and I'm battling distension. So I didn't get to emphasize, which is a big deal in the over 50 division. Not a lot of those guys can pull a vacuum. But I
Mhm.
was pulling a vacuum at that lower weight that would really hollow out my midsection. And because I'm so narrow shouldered, it was a good look. It was unfortunate I wasn't able to do that. But building that tolerance to be able to hold your breath while you're pulling, and you don't have to hold your breath when you're pulling a vacuum, but it does. I mean, it
Mhm.
does work. It does work to be able to hold that. And if you can hold your
Yep.
breath for up to 30 seconds while you're posing on
Mhm.
stage, that's a big deal,
Yep.
because most guys are huffing and puffing because they don't have the ability to do that.
And we believe that as we age, we typically lose control of your TVA.
Yes.
And that's relationship to low back pain is complicated.
Mhm.
So that's that could be a whole topic for a rehab thing, but people typically lose control of that. So start doing it. And I would say do it while holding your breath and doing it while breathing, just to
Yep.
get better core control overall. And that'll help you in the gym dramatically. You're not going to hollow out when you're lifting, when you're doing a Smith back squat, right? Angled the right way, but it's still, the more control you get, the better. All right, next one is from James Moore 8516. If you could speak to your younger self about building your physique, what advice would you give yourself?
Mine's easy. And that is, because I started in the early 80s, I was only 14 years old, so it was roughly 83. The only concept I had of what bodybuilders look like were the magazines. So I assumed I need to be shredded all the time, because the only time that pictures were ever taken was right before a show or right after a show, until I saw Lee Priest totally fat. And then eventually Jay Cutler, one of them was eating a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. I can't remember which, but the point is it really surprised me. Like, oh my God, I thought these guys were ripped and shredded all the time. So what it did is it limited my progress in those early years, because I mean, I had my can of tuna fish and a couple cold baked potatoes that I would take every day for lunch in high school. And, I wanted everybody's attention, because I wanted everyone to know that I was the bodybuilder. Oh, look at me. I'm eating tuna fish out of a can. I'm so hardcore. And these cold potatoes, baked potatoes, which clearly when you're in a growing phase and you're a teenager, I should have just been eating as much as I could eat to some degree, and trying to take advantage of those natural testosterone levels and the fact that my metabolism was through the roof. So very, very limiting from a nutrition standpoint. The training, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I overtrained hugely when I was a teenager. It took me almost a handful of years to figure out, oh, okay, as much as I have been growing, this is the reason I have not been growing, or a big part of the reason why I have not been growing. So those two things stand out. I did arguably start growing more because I used gear at a young age. So that helped me to circumvent some of the bad ideas that I was making, but I could have been much further along had I focused, which is ironic when you think about it, because everybody thinks that gear is the answer to everything. You can't overtrain on gear. Yeah, you can't overtrain. Overtrain is overrated. That's just for the average person. That's total bullshit. You damn sure can overtrain. You can overtrain while you're on gear. So that's just silly. People who say that typically are genetically predispositioned to be better than the rest of us mere mortals. And I believe that, and I stand on that.
Yeah. Learn how to breathe and brace early, because when I started lifting, I was already beat to shit, right? So I started lifting at 22. I weighed 155 pounds at 22 years old. So, and I'm 6 foot. So string being, learning how to brace would have helped me avoid multiple injuries, better performance. And yeah, I did the overtraining thing 6-7 days a week. What is a rest day? I wish I would have found Dante and Dr. Scott earlier, because that's when I literally could not get over 200, and I didn't know how to eat, right? I couldn't get over 200 pounds till I turned like 33, right? And then now, and that's when I started training that way. And then that's when I got, just under 250 earlier this year. Yes, I'm way down. There's a reason why. So everybody shut up. But I wish I would have learned the bracing, the training intensity, right? Because I log booked early on, but I was training 6-7 days a week, right? Just over training. I didn't train legs at all for the first 3 or 4 years. Like I'd do maybe a leg press here or there. So arm day was my favorite day. My physique was super unbalanced. But yeah, I wish I would have learned the bracing and then just taking warm up seriously, because I was already really messed up, and then I forced movements. I firmly believe my elbows are as bad as they are because I kept forcing heavy skull crushers, because I was really strong at them. For my body weight, it was pretty damn impressive, and I really think that messed that up. So I was forcing stuff I shouldn't have forced.
Yep. And I think most of us made a lot of those mistakes anyway. Even the people listening are be like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah. But like, you have to do that to figure out what works for you.
Sure. Exactly.
And because there's no experimentation anymore. Yeah.
Well, who's going to start something and go, oh yeah, maybe I'll underwork, No, it's just a typical thing where people just tend to go, and in our industry, we err on the side of more of everything, from cardio to more dieting, harder dieting, more training, more supplementation. Spend more money on things that don't work. Spend more money on gear. It's just
so that's a big one. I used to, admittedly, embarrassingly, I should drive a Rolls Royce, not my Bullet, which I absolutely love. But I would take 40 to 50 over-the-counter supplements per day, but I wasn't tracking my food. I didn't know how to eat. I didn't really know how to train. I wasted tens of thousands. I mean, it might be 6 figures of the amount of money I wasted. And I would quote it, but beta alanine increases carnosine by 30%, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't know how to train. I didn't know how to eat. I wasn't sleeping. I was partying. I was in a fraternity, right? Like, good God, man. So yeah, all the typical college age gym bro mistakes. Muscle comics, aka muscle magazines, right, were my Bible. And I'm that supplement away from looking like him. So yeah. I think we should save this last one for the next episode, because this is a great question from Spike Hackett. I will give the name, but that could be a very interesting conversation. So why don't we save that, because we're almost at 1:15.
Sounds good. On that note, I'm going to take us out. We got to get to getting. This is Skip and Dr. Marv splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. If you didn't like the show, pretend you did, and like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. It should sound a little something like this. Yeah. Almost hit the wrong button. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use my Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top guys have their clients use my protein because it's that good. Dr. Marv, how can someone reach out to you if they have questions or if they want to work with you?
Easiest way is Instagram at dr.marvin.saysdc. My office is Coastal Performance Chiropractic in the Houston Bay Area. I do telemedicine, nutrition coaching for all of Texas. TheEducatedMeathead.com, consults, workouts, seminars, a bunch of stuff, promo codes to a bunch of stuff, including these. Either way, reach out. Let's work together.
If you have too much skin, meaning you're saying you're 15%, but your fat ass is well over 20%, go to teamskip.com and you'll find all my contact information, including Team Skip merch. You can also follow me on Instagram at Intense Muscle. I remove skin, aka body fat. Just got to clarify, it's not a loose skin issue. Keep in mind that this is a team of 3, not 2. Chris is the enigma behind the scenes, and he's responsible for visuals and graphics. And he also plays a huge role in the creative process. This project would not work without Chris. So from all 3 of us, it's been a business doing pleasure with you. Join us again next week for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.